Now, number two, steering wheel types, flat, deep, we're gonna talk. Now, so, what I mean by this, for the steering wheel types, you have two options. You have the deep dish, which I have, you could see mine is deep dish, or you have the flat wheel. Now, what are the benefits? The flat wheels, they are generally, they lighter. They're way lighter. The deep dishes are heavier, and this obviously is gonna go to the weight point as well very soon. But I want to touch on something. Now, you gotta keep in mind, whenever you're getting a deep dish or a flat wheel, there's a lot of things you need to keep in mind. If you're in a cockpit, like the base is very close to you and you're like, oh crap, like the stock wheel is perfect where it is, and if you know that if you extend the wheel to be a bit closer to you, the steering wheel, now your hands will be like this. Like look how much like your hands is like you're curling a dumbbell, bro. How are you gonna drive like this? So you need to measure your distance. What's your comfort, like, comfort space, comfort zone? Like, you extend your arms like this, okay, that's good. Make sure you don't extend the steering wheel to be too close to you, because you get a deep dish, obviously that's a few centimeters closer and closer and closer, and it gets close to you. So keep this in mind. Distance. Deep dish takes more space. Flat is flat. Is where exactly your quick release will be or adapter reaches. So that's about it. Then also another thing you want to consider will be shifting paddles and stuff. But we're going to just discuss that. Now, another thing that I want to talk about. I will open Discord. I want to make sure that you guys see this. So this is a bit of the coaching chat is very active, so we have a bit of a conversations. I'm gonna scroll a bit to the top so you could see. Now, we have something that I want to address here. So Minton is saying, people say that in T300 you need to remember about offset. How deep is your wheel? If you get bigger offset, like 80 millimeters, you put more force on the bearings, because force is basically further from the bearings. In T300 you get wheel with offset 0, and I order a new one with the same offset. Now, first I want to address this. You ask, what the heck is bearings? Now, bearings are what makes the wheel spin smoothly. How? By reducing the friction between the moving parts. So that's what the bearings do. And in your real life car, they'll be in the steering shaft. So that's what the bearings do. They make the wheel just move and spin smoothly. So, obviously, what he's talking about is how deep is your wheel, it makes bigger offset. What Minton is saying here, that he's quoting these people, maybe he read from forums and so on, and I want to address this. First, I'm going to start with what's offset. An offset is how further the wheel is from the wheelbase. So, you could see I have a big deep dish wheel, and you could see if this curve here is like right about this. So, we have the quick release here, and this is where it ends. Then here is the adapter. The adapter is a bit bigger, they're taped together, that's why you could barely see it, but if we come here you could see a bit red. So the adapter is about a centimeter and a half, so it extends a little bit, right? If this was to be a flat wheel, it would have ended right here. This is where the wheel should have been, and you could see we have a couple of centimeters, quite a few, that this wheel is extended because the frame is curved. It's like this, and it extends it. So you could see right here how much my wheel is extended away from the base. So that's your offset in a nutshell. Another thing that you need to know is that, let's say I decide to put custom paddle shifters or anything here, the more layers I add, that will be between the adapter and the wheel, and they'll be obviously hooked up with the one bolt. Obviously, the more they're gonna add to the offset. They're gonna add millimeters and stuff. Most of them are not bulky, but the more adapters and things you have in here, the more the offset goes away. So the further away the wheel goes, the more the offset, so the higher it is. That's creating a lot of pressure, a lot of leverage on the bearings. And why is Minton mentioning this? Now, I wanna say that this is a very great mention because I believe this is important to be touched on. He mentioned this because he's afraid of long-term damage that can be put on the bearings, or in general he doesn't want to damage any component or just the wheelbase itself. But I really respect everybody that puts a lot of effort to preserve their equipment. So safety, obviously, of the equipment first. If you're not spoiled, you know, I grow up poor, and like that's why I'm saving everything, cleaning, trying to preserve it, like the equipment to last longer. So I understand you don't want to buy a new one. Like you try to keep this to live as much as possible, so it also, you know, pays for the money you've paid over time. Now, I want to debunk something about the bearings. Obviously, I don't all the time have time to reply in the chats fully with like massive essays and stuff. I try to give as much detailed information, but I'd rather honestly do it in the video. That's why I also do this video now. So, regarding the bearings, I use Trustmaster TS XW, or TSPC Racer is the same crap. Now, you need to understand, Minton has T300 and the T300 RS, they are the same power. These are belt-driven bases. Minton, you're worried about damage on your wheel. Now, I will tell you why you should not be worried about damage on the bearings and damage on the wheel. These are very powerful, robust bases. They are meant to work under load. Now, I do understand what you guys might mean. Like, just because they can withstand a lot of load, that doesn't necessarily mean you should put a lot of load on it. I absolutely agree with you. So, don't be afraid to put a deep dish wheel if you want to. But I will tell you the ups and downs of the flat and the deep dish. Since we covered the bearings part and this, I will now talk about the ups and downs, and this brings us to the next point of the weights of the wheel. Don't panic about damage on the bearings. What you should be worried when you pick the wheel is the weight, rather than, oh, this is, you know, making it too further away from the wheel, it's gonna damage the bearings. Guys, these wheel bases are very strong. Don't be panicking about this. Now we're gonna talk about weight of the wheel. Before I forget what I wanted to say, Minton says, second reason that I took flat is that I've got adapter to leave shifter pads. When you take bigger offset, you have bigger distance to pads and it will be hard to catch pads. Now, what Minton is saying here, as they're discussing in the coaching channel, is that, I'll hold with this hand, it's a bit sketchy. You know, your shift paddles will be here, right? So if you get, let's say your base wheel was flat, you want to preserve the pads from your original wheel when you buy aftermarket wheel, which I literally forget to add aftermarket wheels and so on as a point, but I'll talk about them now. So when you get aftermarket wheel, let's say your original wheel that came with the base was flat, they will give you paddles that are meant for flat wheel. They'll have the correct distance from the wheel for flat wheel. So they'll be like here. They will literally be like here. How do you plan to click the paddles with like literally the tip of your finger? Like this. Look. Like this. How? It's not comfortable. It's very bad. They're super further away. They'll be unusable. They'll piss you off. So, if this is the case for you, where you already have a base that came with a flat wheel, and you plan to get an aftermarket wheel that also has an adapter where you can use either your button box, you know, together with the paddles and stuff, by any means, go for whatever the wheel type was. Now, fellas, to summarize, if you are the person looking to detach the button pad and the shifter pads from the original wheel to your new wheel, aftermarket wheel, then what you need to consider is that all the wheels, correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen yet a deep dish wheel with buttons. So all the wheels that come with the wheelbases or separate, they're flat. That means, number one, you need to get a flat wheel if you plan on transferring your original button pads and the shifter pads to a new wheel, custom one. Then, number two, even then, if you get a flat wheel, that's absolutely not necessarily a guarantee that the original basically pad and the shifter pads are gonna fit. They come with different sizes and they're made for the original wheel, sometimes with a specific design. So they might not necessarily fit, or they might not have the holes and so on. And obviously you can do a DIY project, do it yourself, but that's up to you guys. Number 3 that will be from the part is getting the right adapter, making sure that the adapter you will have for the wheel can also fit for the shifter pads or the button pad. Or sometimes you can get an extra adapter in the middle, but you need to keep something very important in mind, which comes to number 4. Number 4 will be the more adapters you lay here on the middle of the offset. This is the base, this is the wheel. If the wheel is here, that's good, but the more adapters you lay here and here and here and here to attach stuff, look at the offset. The offset got so high and so far away from the base. Now if you use a cockpit, like your wheel was right about here, and then now your wheel's about here, like how you're gonna drive. So you gotta be very mindful of the spacing between you and the wheelbase. So these are my 4 points that I strongly advise you guys to make sure you go through the checklist and the sizes and the adapters and stuff, and also the spacing between you and the wheelbase if you plan to basically transfer your original button hub or pad, whatever you want to call it, that's in the middle of the wheel, plus the shifter pads. They might not necessarily fit the new wheel, but if they do, also make sure that if you're gonna lay out a lot of adapters, your space is right. So that's about the deep dish versus flat wheel on the people pretty much that are planning to transfer their original button hubs or pads to the aftermarket ones.